Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody. It is Wednesday afternoon. And what a better way to step into the week with having a conversation about weddings, events, and all the good stuff. Because, it's always important when you're creating a dream wedding. You have to know all the things that goes on with creating dream wedding. And I want to bring a very profound individual, successful woman, intelligent, wise for her age. And she has done so much in the wedding industry for many years. The one and only from I Said Yes. Oh, Georgia DeFrancisco.
Hey, I'm so excited. Yes.
How you doing, Georgia?
I am doing fantastic. I'm excited to be able to share some insight as we head into what's supposed to be an engagement boom this year.
Woo! Engagement boom. Isn't it crazy how a lot of people are starting to get married, and a lot of people say, well, I don't think people are dating to get married anymore, but actually people are getting engaged and actually, getting into that next phase,
They are. And I think as an industry, I know as an industry last year, there was a bit of a slowdown in engagements, and we won't get into that right now because we're talking to couples, not vendors, but there was a bit of an engagement slowdown. And I think across the country that sort of felt like, oh, people aren't getting married, but really, long story short, it's a COVID thing. But now we're in 2024. This is going to be 2.5 million engagements this year, countrywide or nationwide. So, we're excited about seeing it come back to lots of love and lots of weddings and lots of people finding their life mates and their lifetime adventure.
And Georgia, you've been in the business for many years. Can you just share with everybody what you do and what do you provide to the wedding industry?
I can. So we are a wedding planning resource. We're sort of the middleman. We connect engaged couples to wedding professionals so that they can find those that best fit their wedding and their style, and they can work together to build their dream wedding. And then we work with vendors to connect each other together so that as a community of wedding professionals, we can create the best events around. We want Central Florida to be the place everybody wants to be to get married.
And for me, the reason I really wanted to do this interview because you got a lot of people screwing up their wedding. And the reason why, because they don't realize that there's a lot that goes in just one day. Even though it's an 8, 9 hour or 10 hour, 12-hour day, but there's a lot that goes into it. And I don't think the newly engaged couples truly understand what it takes to really create that dream wedding that they're looking for. And, for me, I'm like, hey, don't screw up your wedding day. Listen to the experts on what they do every day. I mean, they literally wake up, live, eat, breathe, ensuring that couple's dream become true. And I wanted to talk about some 3 key tips that I wrote down, which were do your research, get everything in writing, and communicate clearly. But let's first talk about do your research. Like, why is it important for couples newly engaged or those who are on the verge of being proposed? Why is it important for them to do their research when it comes to the industry?
You said it just a minute ago. You said experts in the industry. It's important that you work with experts, people who do this day in, day out, whose job is to create your dream wedding. I don't mean anything bad to Aunt Margaret or your BFF who wants to be your planner, but let them be at your wedding and enjoy your wedding, and hire the experts who know how to handle situations behind the scenes that you have no idea and they have no idea is going to happen, and allow them to do what they're good at. But with that, it's important to find those experts, those wedding professionals that are your vibe, that fit your wedding feel. So start the research early.
And that's interesting because most people don't know that a wedding is an experience, right? It's like you're involving family to be a part of your wedding planning can really screw up your wedding because they have an idea of how you should get married. And then you have an idea of how you should get married. And then when the planner comes in, they have an idea of how you should get married. So you have all these 3 different opinions who wants to be involved and a vision that is special to everyone. But to eliminate the hassle, you got to hire the what? The expert, right?
That's right, the experts. And I have experience in that. Not only have I been a vendor in the past, and now I own I Said Yes, but I also have a daughter who's gotten married in the last couple of years. So I experienced all sides of it. And our number one for our daughter was, regardless of your budget, you're hiring a planner, because your dad and I want to enjoy the wedding. We want to watch this beautiful wedding come together. We want to experience, we want to dance, we want to have a drink, and we don't want to worry about whether or not, because this happened, the bathroom generator on the private property that has no bathrooms quit working. I don't care. The planner handled it, and we just enjoyed the wedding. So we really do understand all perspectives of planning a wedding.
And of course, you do bridal shows and stuff like that. Some of the things in the research aspect that you see brides struggle with when it comes to them really building out that dream wedding.
Yeah, you need to do the research, because there are all kinds of professionals out there. There could be, I don't even know there's like over 400, for instance, wedding venues in Central Florida alone. So there are lots of options. You need to find the ones that fit your schedule, your date, your vibe. And you need to remember that some of these vendors are going to be with you in some of your most intimate moments, like behind the scenes, getting dressed in your dress, that sharing the moment, some couples like to go in and have, that pre moment when they meet each other, the couple, before they say their prayers, they give each other an I love you, and they shake off the nerves. There are going to be photographers. There are going to be hair and makeup artists. There are going to be videographers in your business when this is going on. You need to feel really comfortable with those people, and you need to believe that they understand what you're looking for your wedding, what you feel, and what your boundaries are. And the only way to do that is research, conversate, and communicate.
And and for me, I feel as though, like, as an MC, it's so important that you do your research, because there has to be synergy with your vendors, right? There has to be synergy with your family, because everyone comes from a different culture. Everyone comes from a different background, and your vendors have to have synergy with the vision of what you're trying to do. Listen, sometimes you may come with a Toyota budget. Sometimes you may come with a Lamborghini budget. Sometimes you may come with a Ford truck budget, but you know what to expect out of the experience by putting that money into what we call a research value, being able to discuss and understand and know where your value truly is. Because oftentimes you got a lot of people paying $1,000-something, thousands of dollars on decoration, but haven't even really done their research on how their event is going to flow as a whole. Georgia?
No, I'm glad you said that, because something I say to couples when I speak to them is, when you start planning your wedding and you start planning your budget, know your non-negotiables, because everybody's is different. Maybe when I got married, I just had to have a Vera Wang dress, and that was the only thing that mattered. I didn't care if there was no chairs and everybody had to stand. That was the dress. But maybe, so for instance, my daughter's wedding, the non-negotiables were the kind of tables and the kind of greenery. Those were non-negotiables. So those are the very first things that we discussed and budgeted for and planned ahead for, so that on the wedding day, she absolutely had what she wanted. And as the rest of the vendors began to fall into place, she knew where to move those dollars around and where she was willing to maybe not spend as much as she originally planned, because she had her non-negotiables handled.
And I like that, because once again, it lessens arguments, it lessens frustration, because you see a lot of bridezillas, you see a lot of groomzillas. You can see it on TV when you have the reality shows when it comes to weddings, because everybody has a different taste of luxury, but the number one luxury taste that you should have is experience, making sure that your wedding is an experience. It's an unforgettable, because the most important thing for you to not screw up your wedding is to ensure that your photographer and videographer has enough, how do I say it? They have enough things going on to create and get those moments that you're paying for. You know what I mean? So it's important that you do your research. But the other thing is you have to get it in writing. Why is it important to get it in writing, Georgia?
No, I'm glad I was ready to segue into that. It was a great way to move on. It's important because you need to have an open, and we're going to talk about this too in a minute, open lines of communication. But at the same time, especially in today's world where so much is text message and social media conversations, you need to have in writing, one, that you physically in writing told your vendor, this is what I do or don't want. and that your vendor replied, yes, I can do it, or no, I can't. So when you get to wedding day and you're flipping out because the DJ is not playing the songs you told him to play, it's already been in writing beforehand. Everybody's reviewed it. No, I'm sorry. You didn't give me that list. You gave me this list. It's important to communicate those things up front, and even more so when it comes to dollars, because we all know things are expensive. Read the small print in the contracts. What are you going to be charged extra for? What is your vendor going to do and not going to do? And what are they going to charge you for? So that there's no confusion day of, and you can just get married, love your life, do some dancing, have a good party, and then go live your life together and not stress over all of those details. That if they were in writing in advance, everyone was on the same page.
I like that, because a part of doing the research, it helps you to understand the system that that vendor has in place to ensure that, which is going to be the next thing we talk about, like you said earlier, is the line of communication, having clear communication. It's important that when you're doing research, you understand the system they have in place to make sure that your event is going to have the experience you're looking for. Georgia, has there ever been a wedding or a client that you dealt with where they didn't do the research, you had to you everything in writing, but they still had something bad to say?
Yes. And I guess what I like to say is, again, behind the scenes, the beautiful thing about working, we talked about one thing we didn't say earlier is researching vendors. Is when you're researching vendors, get recommendations, especially from vendors you've already fallen in love with and that you trust and are booking. If you take their recommendations and book vendors who traditionally work together, behind the scenes, all of these frustrations or things that didn't go exactly as planned, because trust me, there will be things that do not go as planned on your wedding day, whether or not you know it. And when you work with a team of professionals behind the scenes, they're going to handle it. Look, I used to be in the wedding cake business. We had a hanging cake fall before the ceremony.
What?
Yes.
Georgia used to do cake?
Like, I did. You didn't know that. I did. Yes, I did. And the cake fell. Like, the bride didn't know it. The groom didn't know it. The only people who knew it, and it was on video, mind you, it was captured on video, were those of us in the room. And it was and then, all right, let's get it done. Let's fix it. Nobody knew when the wedding happened and the ceremony and the reception started, that cake had a slight fall. So those things can be handled if you know you're working with professionals and experts, and you know you're working with people who work together, and you've communicated. And then I'm going to say, hire a planner. Look, I know it's an extra expense, but when you hire a planner, they're in the room handling all of that stuff. So all you're doing is having your little sip of champagne or your little charcuterie board, getting dressed and getting married.
And that's so true, because, one thing as an MC that frustrates me, and you have a family who are planning a wedding and are a part of the wedding, and now there are things happening. Now it falls on the MC, because we want to ensure that we keep the flow going at a certain rate. And if you don't hire a planner, just know that if things are happening in the background, that person who just spent $300-400 on that dress to be at your wedding is now doing work at your wedding in that $300-400 dress. And don't forget, that person has to pay for their makeup. So now they're sweating while they're moving things around, right? That person have to get their hair done. So now their hair is probably staticking everywhere because of the humidity of the sweat and the heat, right? So that's why Georgia is saying it is so important that you connect with a planner, a professional, expert planner that has a system in place that's going to help you to literally get that experience that you need for a wedding. That goes to the communication aspect. You got to communicate what you want. Ain't that right, Georgia?
That's
you
right.
You got to talk about vision, right?
Tell them what you want. Tell them what you don't want. Communicate. And we're going to move right into that, because communication is key in your marriage and in planning your wedding and speaking to your vendors.
Have you ever in how long you been doing what you've been doing, Georgia?
15 years, and I've been married 27. So
wow.
Yeah.
So when you stepped out to start the company and you knew that you were going to bring a solution to a problem in the wedding industry, what were some of the struggles you dealt with in the beginning communicating with brides that you felt like you have now established to give somebody who's watching this some mentoring steps to not be able to screw up their wedding?
No, that's a huge one. I think that the thing I would like to say is, as a couple, don't assume that your vendor understood and knows what you want. Ask them, you know, ask them, did you understand what I'm saying? Ask them, did you understand this? Or did you hear when I said this? Do you have a note in this? It's that communication and in writing. Don't just assume that they understood you, and don't assume that they're going to do something that you didn't ask them if they're doing. And that circles back to the small print. And that circles back to what you just said about sometimes you're stuck, you know, trying to handle the cake cutting because they didn't hire a professional caterer. You didn't get paid to do that. And if it's in the small print of your contract, that if they ask you to do something outside of your contract, you're going to charge them. All of this circles back together.
Georgia, you just said something. Georgia, you just said something, Georgia.
I did.
Customers cannot be mad when you are being charged extra for a job that you didn't sign up for on that wedding day.
Yeah, no, and it will happen, and it does happen, and you see reviews come out. It's unfortunate that social media is a good and a bad thing, and reviews are huge, and they do so many good things in helping you find the right people for your dinner plate or your catering or your dresses for your weddings. But at the same time, it can be detrimental to a small business owner when a couple comes back and writes a bad review because they were charged for something that they said they weren't told they were charged for, but it's in the small print of the contract because you asked your DJ or your MC to cut the cake. Those are things that circle back again. Don't damage as a couple, don't damage a small business owner who's just trying to put food on their table, who had it in the contract if you didn't read the contract.
Georgia, you got to say that again. Please say it again, Georgia.
Read the small print in your contract. Don't damage another small business owner who's just trying to put food on their table and do a good job for you. Don't damage them because you didn't read the small print and then you wrote a bad review because they didn't do what you wanted to do on the wedding day.
Georgia, let me tell you, you are so on point because next week conversation that I got coming on, I got to find somebody to interview for it. But anyway, it literally say it's not our fault that your wedding was trash. Because that's a tough one. That's a tough pill to swallow because that's the truth. Like, we are small business operating to build an empire in an industry and doing our best to do things in excellent. But because you refuse to budget properly, right? Or you try to save money in certain areas, and now you're expecting someone else who is a DJ, you want him to do photo booth. Now you want a how do I say, you want the person who's putting the drapes. Now you want them to light up the candles on the table. Like, you have to pick what you want this person to do because they are hired specifically for what they're called to do.
Yes, and I think you said something really strong there. You, as a couple, you don't want to pay for the service with another vendor, but then you expect your vendors on the day of to not get paid to do that for you. That it doesn't work like that. Just like you sitting in your desk wouldn't expect your boss to give you somebody else's job and not pay you to do it. The same works for your vendors. Your vendors want to give you their very best service. And if you're asking them to step outside of what they do best and do something else, two things are going to happen. They're probably not going to do the best job at what you're asking them to do. That's not their service. And their service for you is going to suffer because you've pulled them, like they've pulled you out of your MC off your mic and asked you to do something. Now you can't read the room. You can't be the MC. You can't get the next, transition into the next thing because you're busy cutting cake.
You know what? I thought the Super Bowl was on Sunday, but the Super Bowl's today. You just hit winning field goal, Georgia. Oh my goodness. You just hit a field goal saying that because it is so true. It's true. Everyone has a role. The DJ has to make sure that the MC does the right job to create the atmosphere for the music. And then you have your photo booth person has to make sure that the 360 is properly set. So during dinner or the salads drop, that they're going in to do the 360 photo. The same thing as the cake lady. The cake lady shouldn't be the one trying to run the bar because she got to make sure that all the utensils are properly there to cut the cake, just in case that you guys are not doing it with the audience and you're doing it silently with your photographers. There are a lot of things that the people hiring to do their work, they are focused on what they are called to do Georgia just dropped a field goal Super Bowl on this Wednesday. My goodness.
And I think it all comes back to, I don't want the couples listening to like, oh my gosh, Georgia, I'm totally freaked out now. I don't want you to freak out about your wedding. I want you to enjoy the experience of planning your wedding, making these decisions together and building this life, starting with the communication and the building of the wedding and the planning of the wedding. But it's important to plan ahead, do your research, communicate openly as a couple about what you do and don't like and who you do and don't like for vendors, and communicate with your vendors so that when you arrive on your wedding day, you're just allowed to chill, enjoy the day, and relax, and let all of us behind the scenes that do this stuff handle it. But plan ahead and do your research. Don't procrastinate, especially this year with 2.5 million engagements nationwide. There's going to be a lot of couples out there looking for their vendors. Plan ahead because you're going to want to get your vendor on your date, and you don't want somebody else to take it because you sat and waited.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like this conversation, don't screw up your wedding day, is so important. You know, like I said, there's a lot of people that stop me when I'm out and about, and they're asking questions about wedding things, and I'm like, hey, look, the best advice I can give you is here are some nuggets to take. As a celebrity host for myself, I am focused on creating an experience. I love to partner with people who understand the business behind what we do, because what we do starts off with what happens in the back end, because the experience don't happen the night that you get married. The experience happening in the process of booking, getting the right vendors, understanding the synergy between your vendors, whether it's food, bar, whether it's decoration, whether it's planning the itinerary, whether it's having hors d'oeuvres for your cocktail hour, or whether you're going to a bridal show. I said yes, and being able to see what vendors they're bringing, because when you go to a bridal show, the person who creates that is letting you know this is the synergy you need at your wedding, but your choice to decide the culture that you want to develop with the culture that you have with your vendor that's going to allow them to experience what you want your audience to experience. So, Georgia, as we get ready to don't screw up your wedding day today, I want you to just drop just one wedding advice to someone who's getting ready. There's a guy who's getting ready to propose to his girl, and he's looking at some budgeting things, or maybe there is someone who's newly engaged. What could you say from I Said Yes? What is one model that you hold on to, that you share with every couple that comes to your company?
For me, it's super simple. Make it your wedding. Don't let a family member or a vendor influence or change your mind about what you want for your wedding. It is your wedding. Make it something that you're going to enjoy and remember in 10, 15, 20. Like I said, 27 years. My parents have been married 60 years. That in 60 years, when you look back and you say that was our wedding, that you remember all of the good stuff that happened because it was your wedding.
Wow. Listen, you guys are in the presence of greatness. This is Georgia. Okay. You guys got to meet her husband, Jerry, and her incredible team. They have I Said Yes events. If you're a vendor and you're watching this, make sure you guys signed up. Georgia, how can everybody get connected to your platform and to all the events that you do?
We are exactly the same across all platforms. We are I Said Yes FL, as in Florida. So I Said Yes FL, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. That's our website address. That's my email address, Georgia, just like the state, at ISaidYesFL.com. Our next wedding planning date night is I Do's and Brews, March the 28th in Winter Garden. Tickets are on sale. VIP tickets are available, which include a digital download to the pretty amazing wedding planning booklet. So you don't want to miss that opportunity to get connected and start planning together. Come out as a couple for a wedding planning date night.
When is that date? Drop the date again.
March the 28th. I Do's and Brews. March
the 28th. If I'm in town, I'm going to be in the building. Make sure you guys come check out Georgia. Like I said, they are incredible. They couldn't have anybody better to start off this conversation with rather than Georgia. When it came down to my mind, I knew the perfect person for this conversation, that I really wanted to start off this trend, this conversation, because it needs to happen in the space that we're in. Because once again, we're small businesses for now. We want to continue to grow, but we can't grow without you continue to understand how we work. It is a partnership. We are building synergy together to create the experience that we want for you. It's not our wedding day, it's your wedding day. Thank you so much for watching. Don't screw up your wedding day. I'm Ramces Rouzard, your celebrity host. Thank you once again, Georgia. With that being said, have a wonderful rest of your week. It is Hump Day Wednesday. Hey, baby. Woo! And remember, your experience matters.